1971, late evening. The studio lot was empty, and John Wayne was walking to his car when he saw the man in the rain holding a sign that read Vietnam Veteran. He turned back because it was the right thing to do. The day's shooting had wrapped 2 hours earlier. The crew had packed up the lights, coiled the cables, locked the equipment trucks. The sound stage stood dark and silent. Most of the cast and crew had left by 6. It was now past 8. John Wayne walked alone across the parking lot. 64 years old. Tired. His back ached from 12 hours in the saddle for a Western that would probably be his last. The doctors had found the cancer 2 years ago. Cut out a lung. Told him to slow down. He'd ignored them, as he ignored most advice that didn't align with his own sense of what needed doing. Rain had started an hour ago. Not the dramatic downpour of a movie scene, but the steady, cold rain of a California winter evening. The kind that soaked through clothes and made everything gray. His car was parked in his usual spot. A brown Pontiac station wagon, nothing fancy, nothing that screamed movie star. He'd never been interested in that kind of display. He was 10 feet from the car when he saw him. A man standing near the studio gate. Young. Maybe 28, 29. Thin in a way that suggested months of not eating regularly. He wore an olive military field jacket, unzipped despite the rain, the fabric dark with water. His hair was longer than regulation, wet and hanging in his face. He held a piece of cardboard. Hand-lettered in black marker, the ink already bleeding in the rain, Vietnam Veteran. The man wasn't aggressive. Wasn't calling out. Just standing there. Waiting. Like he'd been standing there for hours. Like he'd stand there for hours more because he had nowhere else to be. John Wayne stopped walking. He stood there for maybe 5 seconds. The rain hitting his Stetson, running off the brim. His hand on the car door handle. He could get in the car. Drive away. The young man probably wouldn't even notice. Hell, the kid probably hadn't even recognized him in the dim light and rain. John Wayne turned around and walked toward the gate. Wayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The veteran saw him coming and straightened slightly, instinctively, the way soldiers do when an officer approaches. Then his eyes focused and recognition hit him. "Sir, I didn't mean to." The young man's voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it much lately. Wayne stopped about 6 feet away. Close enough to talk without shouting over the rain. Far enough to give the kid space. "How long you been standing here?" Wayne's voice was quiet. That distinctive drawl, but without the theatrical quality it sometimes carried on screen. This was the real voice. The one his friends knew. "Couple hours maybe. I didn't know if I was allowed to." The veteran looked down at his cardboard sign, like he was ashamed of it. The rain had softened the edges. It was falling apart in his hands. "You looking for work?" "Yes, sir." "Anything. I can do anything. I worked on a ranch before I enlisted. I can handle horses." "I can." He stopped himself, realizing he was talking too fast, too desperate. Wayne nodded slowly. "What's your name, son?" "Thomas Braddock, sir. Corporal. 1st Cavalry Division." "When'd you get back?" 7 months ago." 7 months. Long enough to realize that the world you left didn't want you back. Long enough to exhaust the patience of family and friends who couldn't understand why you couldn't just get over it and move on. Long enough to end up standing in the rain outside a movie studio with a cardboard sign because you tried everything else. Wayne looked at the sign again. At the way the ink was running, the cardboard disintegrating. At this kid who'd done what Wayne himself had never done. And there it was. The weight he'd carried for almost 30 years. John Wayne had never served in combat. He'd been 34 when Pearl Harbor happened, married with 4 children, working in a reserved occupation. He could have enlisted anyway. Other men had. Other actors had. Jimmy Stewart had flown bombing missions over Germany. Clark Gable had served. Even his friend Ward Bond had tried to enlist before being turned down for medical reasons. Wayne had made war movies instead. Good ones. Patriotic ones. Movies that made people feel proud and brave and reminded them what they were fighting for. But they were movies. And he'd spent 3 decades being called a hero for pretending to do what men like Thomas Braddock had actually done. The guilt of that had never quite left him. Most people didn't know about it. He didn't talk about it. But it was there. Carried quietly, like a stone in your boot that you learned to walk with. He looked at Thomas Braddock standing in the rain, and saw something he recognized. Not in the kid's circumstances, but in his posture. The way he held himself. Still squared away despite everything. Still showing up even when there was no reason to believe anyone would help. That was discipline. Real discipline. Not the movie kind. Away from the cameras, Wayne made a choice no one expected. "You eaten today?" Wayne asked. Thomas hesitated. I ate something this morning." Wayne nodded. "There's a diner about 2 miles from here. Stays open late. Get in the car." "Sir, I can't." "That wasn't a request, Corporal." Wayne's voice carried that particular quality of authority that didn't need volume. "Get in the car." Thomas Braddock stood there for a moment, the cardboard sign hanging limp in his hands, rain running down his face. Then he nodded. "Yes, sir." Wayne walked to the station wagon. Thomas followed, leaving the ruined cardboard sign leaning against the studio gate, the words Vietnam veteran barely visible now in the rain and darkness. They drove in silence for the first mile. The heater was on, but Thomas was shivering, whether from cold or something else. Wayne couldn't tell and didn't ask. "You got family?" Wayne finally asked. "Parents in Ohio. Haven't talked to them in 4 months." "Why not?" Thomas looked out the window at the rain. They ask questions I can't answer. About what it was like over there. What I did. And when I can't talk about it, they think I'm being difficult. Or that I don't trust them. So it's just easier not to call." Wayne nodded. He understood that. The spaces between what could be said and what could be understood. "Where you staying?" "Different places. There's a shelter downtown that lets you stay 3 nights at a time. Sometimes I sleep in my car when I have gas money." "You have your car here?" "No, sir. Sold it 2 months ago for rent money. That ran out 3 weeks ago." Wayne pulled into the diner parking lot. The place was called the Westerner, which made him almost smile. Everything in Los Angeles was called the Westerner or the Frontier or the Ranch. As if naming something after an idea of the West made it more real. They went inside. The waitress looked up from wiping down the counter and did a double take when she recognized Wayne, but something in his expression kept her from making a fuss. He nodded at a booth in the back. They sat down. "Order whatever you want," Wayne said. "All of it," Thomas ordered carefully. "A burger. Fries. Coffee." Like he was trying not to seem too hungry even though his hands shook slightly when he lifted the water glass. Wayne ordered coffee and said nothing until the food came. He watched Thomas eat. Not fast, not desperately, but with the focused attention of someone who hadn't been sure when the next meal would come. When the kid was halfway through the burger, Wayne spoke. "I never served." The words came out flat. Factual. Lot of people don't know that. They think because I made the movies, because I played soldiers, that I was one. I wasn't. Thomas looked up, surprised. "I was 34 when the war started." Wayne continued. "Had 4 kids. Reserved occupation. Could have enlisted anyway. Didn't." He paused. "Spent 30 years pretending to do what men like you actually did. Sir, those movies, they mattered. My whole unit watched the sands of Iwo Jima before we deployed. It reminded us why we were going." Wayne shook his head slightly. "That's generous of you to say. But I know the difference between me and you. And I've carried that knowledge for a long time." Thomas set down his burger. Sir, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why'd you stop? Back at the studio. Why'd you turn around? Wayne was quiet for a long moment. The diner's fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Rain streaked the windows. Someone fed coins into the jukebox, and a country song started playing low. Because you were standing there, Wayne finally said. In the rain. With that sign. And nobody else was stopping. And I thought, if I just drive past you like you're invisible, then what the hell have I been making these movies for? What's the point of playing the hero if I won't be one when it costs me nothing but time? He pulled out his wallet, took out a business card, his production company, and wrote something on the back. A name. A phone number. This is my assistant director on the picture we're shooting. Name's Tom Hennessy. You call him tomorrow morning. Tell him I sent you. We need wranglers for the horse work. It's not much money, but it's steady for the next 8 weeks, and it comes with a place to stay. Bunkhouse on the location ranch. Thomas took the card with both hands, staring at it like it might disappear. Sir, I don't know what to. Don't thank me, Wayne interrupted. Just show up. On time. Do the work. That's all I'm asking. I will. I swear I will. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. Thomas Braddock showed up the next morning at 5 a.m. He worked harder than anyone else on that set for the next 8 weeks. Never complained. Never asked for special treatment. Just did the work. The other wranglers found out he was a Vietnam vet. Word spread. Some of the crew avoided him. The war was unpopular, and association felt dangerous. But some of the older crew, the ones who'd served in World War II or Korea, looked out for him quietly. Made sure he got fed. Made sure he had what he needed. Wayne never made a show of having brought him on. Never pointed him out to anyone. Never told the story of finding him in the rain. He just nodded at Thomas when he saw him, the way you'd nod at any other crew member doing their job. On the last day of shooting, Wayne found Thomas alone with the horses at dawn. What's next for you? Wayne asked. Got a job lined up at a ranch in Montana. One of the stunt guys knows the owner. They need someone who can handle horses. Wayne nodded. That's good. You'll do well there. Sir, Thomas paused, trying to find words. You saved my life. That night in the rain. I need you to know that. Wayne shook his head. I gave you a phone number and a job, son. You saved your own life by showing up and doing the work. Still, I won't forget it. Wayne pulled something from his pocket. A medal. Bronze Star, from a movie prop collection. He'd carried it for weeks, not sure what to do with it. This isn't real, Wayne said. But I want you to have it anyway. Not because you need a piece of metal to prove anything. But because when you're in Montana and things get hard, and they will get hard, that's just life. I want you to remember that you stood in the rain with a cardboard sign and you didn't give up. And when some movie star stopped to help, you didn't waste it. You showed up. Thomas took the medal. His eyes were wet, but he didn't cry. I'll keep showing up, he said. I know you will. They shook hands. Wayne walked back to his car. He never saw Thomas Braddock again. But 30 years later, after Wayne had died, a letter arrived at the Wayne family estate. It was from Thomas Braddock. Now 58. Owner of a horse ranch in Montana. Married. 3 children. 22 years sober. The letter was short. Mr. Wayne turned back in the rain when he didn't have to. He gave me a card, a job, and a reason to keep showing up. I've been showing up ever since. My children know this story. They'll tell their children. A man's legacy isn't what he does on camera. It's what he does when nobody's watching. Enclosed was the prop Bronze Star Wayne had given him. Still kept. Still carried. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. The card Wayne had written that night stayed in Thomas Braddock's wallet until the day he died. Worn. Creased. The ink faded but still readable. John Wayne never told anyone about that rainy night. He didn't need to. He'd done what was right. That was enough. Real strength isn't loud. It turns back in the rain. It shows up. It costs nothing but time. That's the measure of a man.